So, three West African nations just packed up and walked away from the highest criminal court in the world.
Yeah, which is a massive diplomatic earthquake on its own.
Right. But the real shockwave here, the loudest applause for this dramatic exit, it didn't come from their immediate neighbors.
No,
But it actually came from a Palestinian organization roughly 3,000 miles away.
Which seems completely disconnected at first glance.
Exactly. I mean, international law isn't some omnipotent global police force, right? It's more like a massive volunteer homeowners association.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
It only has power because everyone agreed to sign the initial contract.
Yeah.
But what happens when the residents covering the largest plots of land decide to just stop paying their dues?
And, rip up the rule book entirely.
Yeah, and publicly declare the HOA board fundamentally corrupt.
Well, the whole neighborhood takes notice. And the underlying authority of the institution begins to fracture. You start looking at the mechanics of how that system was built, and you realize the foundation is incredibly brittle if the members just, refuse to cooperate.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking you right to the center of a massive, real-time geopolitical collision.
It's a heavy one today.
It really is. We have a fascinating stack of sources in front of us, and our mission today is to unpack a series of unprecedented events that are actively shaking the international stage.
We are tracking the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, for starters.
Right, and their formal withdrawal from the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Plus, the intense polarizing debates this has sparked across the globe.
Debates regarding global justice, neocolonialism, and the perceived powerlessness of international institutions.
We are dissecting the operational mechanics of a total system breakdown.
Exactly. We're looking at why these specific state actors are abandoning the legal frameworks established over the last few decades.
And how that abandonment is resonating across completely different geopolitical conflicts. But before we go any further, I need to set some ground rules for you, the listener.
Yeah, this is a crucial point.
The sources we are analyzing today are raw. And, they contain deeply politicized, severe accusations.
We are looking at documents that utilize really heavy terminology.
Yeah.
Words like genocide, crimes of depopulation, and neocolonial repression.
So you want to be clear, we're not taking sides today.
Yeah.
Nor are we, endorsing any of these viewpoints.
Right. Our role is purely as your guides through this material.
Exactly. We are here to impartially report the mechanics and the arguments written in the source material, just so you can clearly understand the narratives currently shaping the global order.
The objective here is synthesis. We need to strip away the rhetoric to understand the underlying logic driving these unprecedented diplomatic moves.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the Alliance of Sahel States, or the AES. Imagine a neighborhood watch forming, but one born out of severe disillusionment with the local authorities.
Yeah, they felt totally abandoned.
Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger share a massive geographic border in the Sahel region, but they also share a relentless, immediate threat from armed terrorist groups.
And their military leaders basically decided the existing regional support systems were actively failing them.
The catalyst for this current situation goes back to January 2024, right?
Yes, exactly. These three nations, led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, Colonel Assimi Goïta in Mali, and General Abdourahmane Tiani in Niger, they took the massive step of leaving ECOWAS.
And just for context for everyone listening, ECOWAS is the Economic Community of West African States.
It's a massive economic and political bloc. Leaving it means severing trade agreements, free movement of people, banking ties.
Wow.
Yeah, it is the geopolitical equivalent of economic isolation just to preserve absolute sovereignty.
So they basically burn the bridge with their economic bloc, and then they start building their own fortress.
That's a good analogy.
By July 6, 2024, in Niamey, Niger, they officially create the Confederation of the Alliance of Sahel States. And it's anchored by something called the Liptako-Gourma Charter.
Right, so the Liptako-Gourma region is the specific tri-border area between these three countries.
Okay.
It is historically the absolute epicenter of the armed insurgencies in the Sahel. So the charter they signed is essentially a mutual defense pact.
It has 17 articles, if I remember the source correctly.
Yep, 17 articles. And the core mechanic is Article 6, which explicitly states that an attack on the sovereignty or territorial integrity of one member is an act of aggression against all of them.
So it's a one-for-all, all-for-one situation.
Exactly. It mandates collective armed defense against terrorism, rebellion, or external interference.
Okay, so they walled off their neighborhood. They have established their own collective military doctrine.
Yeah.
But you don't build an impenetrable fortress unless you are trying to escape someone's jurisdiction.
And that points directly to the breaking news confirmed by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
Right. As of June 30th, 2026, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have formally notified the United Nations of their withdrawal from the Rome Statute.
They are literally walking away from the International Criminal Court.
Which is huge. I mean, what is their stated rationale for this exit? Because it's heavy stuff.
It is. The AES states accuse the ICC of lacking basic impartiality. They argue the court actively politicizes human rights to target specific regimes.
Basically functioning as an instrument of neo-colonial repression, according to them.
Exactly. They are putting forth the narrative that the ICC is a tool wielded by Western powers to control African nations, rather than, a neutral arbiter of global justice.
Now, if you're listening to this, your first thought is probably, aren't these military regimes just trying to dodge war crime charges?
It's the obvious question.
Right, because we know from international reports that the armies in Mali and Burkina Faso have faced numerous allegations of severe human rights abuses during their anti-terrorism campaigns.
Yeah, walking away from the world's highest criminal court definitely looks like the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card.
Exactly. But is it that simple?
Well, Julian Antuli, who is an international law specialist interviewed by Radio France International for our sources, he addresses that exact suspicion.
Okay, what does he say?
He says the desire to avoid prosecution is almost certainly the primary driver. However, wanting to tear up a treaty and actually escaping its legal reach are two entirely different mechanical processes.
Oh, really? So it doesn't just happen overnight?
Not at all. The legal reality of leaving the ICC is incredibly slow by design.
So practically, this operates like a built-in failsafe. You can't just send a resignation letter on Tuesday, commit a crime on Wednesday, and then claim immunity on Thursday.
Exactly. The Rome Statute has a mandatory 1-year delay. Once a nation notifies the UN, it takes 12 full months for the withdrawal to finalize.
Wow, 12 months.
And more importantly, the ICC retains full, perpetual legal jurisdiction over any crimes committed before that withdrawal goes into effect.
Including any crimes committed during that 1-year transition window, right?
Yes, precisely.
Which means any ongoing investigations don't just magically disappear. If the prosecutors in The Hague are already bailing a case, they keep building it.
And Mali is the perfect test case for this. The ICC has had an active, open investigation into the situation in Mali since 2012.
Since 2012. That's over a decade.
Yeah, and ironically, it was a previous Malian government that voluntarily referred the situation to the court in the first place.
Oh, wow.
So legally speaking, the prosecutor in The Hague still has the absolute authority to open inquiries into massacres or issue arrest warrants for specific Malian officials today.
But having a legal right on paper and actually enforcing it on the ground, right, those seem like two completely separate universes.
Oh, absolutely. The operational reality has to be a nightmare for the ICC.
Because they don't have some international police force hovering in the clouds waiting to swoop in. They are lawyers and investigators who need basic logistics to function.
What's fascinating here is how quickly the legal theory collapses without state cooperation. Operationally, the ICC is practically frozen.
Because investigators can't simply parachute into the Sahel.
Right. They require visas to cross borders, heavy security to visit active conflict zones, access to physical crime scenes.
And crucially, they rely entirely on the local national police to physically execute their arrest warrants. It's like a judge issuing a search warrant for a sprawling estate, but the local police actively refuse to serve it.
And the homeowner has welded the steel gates shut.
Right. The piece of paper sitting on the judge's desk in The Hague is legally flawless, but in the physical world, it is entirely useless.
The authority just exists in a total vacuum. If the governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger sever all communication and refuse to cooperate, the ICC machinery simply stops turning.
It's a stark reminder that international law is only as powerful as the local enforcement willing to back it up. So the AES has effectively exposed the operational fragility of the ICC. They've highlighted that a nation can just lock the door and ignore the court.
Yeah.
And this dramatic rejection has triggered a really strange geopolitical resonance. Because the loudest praise for this withdrawal came from a completely different theater of conflict.
It reveals how grievances against global institutions are compounding. The Sahel's rejection of the court is being mirrored and frankly celebrated by actors who feel equally abandoned by the same system.
But for entirely different reasons, right?
Exactly.
Let's pull up this document dated July 5, 2026. It is an official communique from an organization called PALEST.ING, specifically their Cultural and Artistic Operations Department.
Right.
They are formally granting the award Ben Palestine 2026 to what they refer to as the AES Triumvirate, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger.
The language in this document is incredibly aggressive and highly specific.
Yeah, it really is.
They are praising the AES for their, quote, notable withdrawal, claiming that by leaving, the AES is actively contributing to reforming the world judicial order.
But the document goes much further than just praising sovereignty.
Yeah.
It launches a direct, severe attack on the ICC itself.
They don't hold back at all.
PALEST. Paying accuses the court of being a contextual accomplice to genocide or depopulation crimes in occupied Palestine. They applaud the AES for denouncing the ICC's manifestly corrupt instrumentalization.
We are seeing the convergence of two distinct anti-institutional narratives here.
How so?
Well, the AES claims the court is a tool of neocolonial repression, actively targeting African nations while ignoring the global north.
Right.
Meanwhile, this Palestinian organization claims the court is corrupt because it allegedly protects powerful signatory states while remaining paralyzed or complicit in the face of severe crimes in the Middle East.
Wow.
So both sources arrive at the exact same conclusion. The global justice system is rigged.
And this brings us to a glaring, profound irony embedded in the official architecture of the ICC itself.
Yeah, this part is really telling.
We pulled the official directory of the International Criminal Court for this deep dive. It lists all 125 states parties to the Rome Statute.
And if you look at that list...
Yeah, if you scroll down to the E section of the French registry, right there on the official list is the État de Palestine, the State of Palestine.
Right. The State of Palestine formally acceded to the Rome Statute. The United Nations and the ICC recognized their official date of membership as January 2, 2015.
January 2, 2015. So they've been a recognized entity under the court's jurisdiction for over a decade.
Exactly.
Think about the mechanics of that irony for a second. You are an official, dues-paying member of a highly exclusive security club.
You went through all the diplomatic hurdles.
You signed the paperwork in 2015. Your name is literally on the brass plaque by the front door.
Aww.
But when your house is allegedly being destroyed, the club's security guards just sit in the lobby.
Entirely powerless to intervene.
Right. Or worse. As this Palestinian source alleges, the security guards are actually complicit with the people attacking your house.
It is the paradox of the phantom member.
The phantom member. I like that.
You have an officially recognized state existing on paper, ostensibly protected by the umbrella of international law. Yet from the perspective of the Palestinian authors of this award, that legal status of membership since 2015 has translated into absolutely zero physical protection on the ground.
It's just wild. The irony is staggering.
It really is. A state that fought for recognition within the court is now issuing awards to African nations for having the courage to abandon that very same court.
Because it perfectly mirrors the AES's fundamental complaint, just from the opposite side of the spectrum.
Exactly.
The AES says, we are members, but the court only aggressively investigates us.
Right.
And the Palestinian source says, we are members, but the court refuses to aggressively protect us. It is the exact same fracture in trust.
And to connect this back to you, the listener, regardless of where you stand on the usage of terms like depopulation crimes or neocolonialism, the undeniable reality presented in these sources is a total collapse of faith.
Yeah, a massive collapse.
A significant portion of the global south, stretching from the Sahel to the Middle East, is experiencing a profound disillusionment with the global judicial order.
Because they perceive a two-tiered system of justice that basically just bends to the will of geopolitical power.
Exactly.
But if the ICC is facing this massive backlash, with nations walking away and cultural groups issuing awards to celebrate the court's decline, what happens to the actual people on the ground?
That's the real issue here.
Right. The real victims of the armed conflicts in the Sahel or the victims in the Middle East. Is the ICC just destined to become a multi-million-dollar empty courtroom in The Hague, while the real pursuit of justice happens somewhere else?
That is the tragic reality of this bureaucratic breakdown. When a state withdraws, the avenues for victims to seek recourse shrink dramatically.
Yeah.
But Julian Antuli points out in his interview that we shouldn't romanticize the past effectiveness of the ICC either.
What does he mean by that?
Well, the court was never an incredibly efficient machine in these regions to begin with.
Oh, I see. And the numbers actually back that up.
They do.
Despite having an open investigation in Mali since 2012, Antuli notes that the ICC has only ever brought 3 cases forward regarding Mali, and only 2 have actually been judged.
Right. 3 cases in over a decade of complex, brutal conflict is, well, it's an incredibly marginal footprint.
It really is.
But you have to understand, ICC was never designed to be the primary police force for any conflict.
Okay, so how is it supposed to work?
The mechanical logic of the court is based on a principle called complementarity. It essentially operates like a backup generator.
A backup generator.
Yeah, the ICC is only allowed to power up and take over an investigation if a country's own domestic courts are completely unwilling or structurally unable to prosecute the crimes themselves.
But the AES argument is that the backup generator only seems to turn on for African conflicts, which fuels those neocolonialism claims.
That's their argument, yes. Though, if you look at the ICC's current docket, that argument is starting to lose some of its statistical weight.
Really? How so?
The court's focus has broadened significantly over the years, which is a point often lost in these regional debates.
Yeah, I see.
Currently, more than half of the ICC's open investigations are outside the African continent. They have active investigations into the conflict in Ukraine, the situation in the Philippines.
And ironically, they do have an active, heavily contested investigation regarding the situation in Palestine.
Exactly. The prosecutors in The Hague are actively attempting to assert global jurisdiction.
Clearly, though, for the leaders of the AES and for organizations like PALEST.ING, those broader investigations are perceived as either performative, fundamentally compromised, or just, simply too late.
Yeah, the trust is already gone.
So where does this leave us? Does Antuli foresee a domino effect? Are the remaining 30-something African member states going to follow the AES out the door?
Antuli views a mass continental exodus as highly unlikely, actually.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Various states have threatened to leave the Rome Statute over the past decade when the political heat gets too high, but very few actually follow through with the year-long withdrawal process.
Right, because of that 12-month delay.
Exactly. The AES departure is significant, but it's largely isolated to regimes that are actively consolidating military power right now.
But if the ICC is locked out of the Sahel, and the domestic courts in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are controlled by the very military regimes leading these nations, the victims in those countries have nowhere to turn locally or globally.
It's a really bleak situation.
Where does the pursuit of justice migrate?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are witnessing a distinct shift from global universalism to continental regionalism.
What does that look like in practice?
Antuli suggests that victims will increasingly have to pivot toward regional bodies. For instance, the African Court on Human and People's Rights.
Okay.
In fact, a case was recently opened against the Malian state in that specific court. It is a fundamental shift in strategy.
Basically bypassing the paralyzed global mechanism in The Hague in favor of a localized continental system that might have more immediate regional leverage.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring the threads of this deep dive together for you. We started by looking at a localized security crisis. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger forming the Alliance of Sahel States.
Signing the Lebdako-Gourma Mutual Defense Pact.
Right, and deciding to completely sever ties with the International Criminal Court to protect their sovereignty.
But by tracing the mechanics of that withdrawal and analyzing the reactions across the globe, we see that this is far more than just a regional legal maneuver.
It is a massive lightning rod. The AES exit exposes a deep structural fracture in the trust placed in our international institutions.
Absolutely.
We saw how this withdrawal resonated instantly with Palestinian advocates who view the ICC as a complicit, broken system.
And the irony is absolute.
Yeah, the state of Palestine has been an official, dues-paying member of the ICC since January 2, 2015. Yet they suffer from the phantom member syndrome,
where official legal status offers zero physical protection against what they view as depopulation crimes.
The narrative bridging the Sahel and the Middle East is identical. The architectural scales of international justice are permanently weighted to protect powerful states while heavily policing or entirely ignoring the vulnerable.
It's a really sobering reality.
Which brings us back to that Homeowners Association of International Law.
Yeah.
The AES just kicked down the gates and walked out of the neighborhood, and other members are standing on their lawns pointing out the cracks in the asphalt.
They definitely left a mark.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to mull over as you go about your day. If global courts, like the ICC, continue to hemorrhage the faith of the exact nations and populations they were mechanically built to protect, Are we witnessing the end of a single, unified concept of international law?
That's the big question.
And if the world does splinter into decentralized regional justice systems where the African court handles African issues and other regions build their own isolated tribunals, what happens when those different regions fundamentally disagree on what actually constitutes a crime against humanity?
It forces us to ask if universal human rights can even exist without a universal system to enforce them.
It's a massive question, and one the global community is going to have to answer very soon.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the architecture around you. We'll catch you next time.